Okaeri. Tadaima! Tadaima! At Luxium, me and the boys went to Japan. This was my first time in Japan. The first thing that I want to say is the culture shock. Japan is a different place than the UK, and getting used to that was difficult. It's not that getting used to Japan was difficult, it's that reminding myself that I'm not in Japan anymore after having come home. That's the difficult part, because people treat things differently in Japan than they do in the UK, and all of us are respectful of that. But then when you come back to the UK and you realize that people act in a completely different way, I'm still in Japan mode, basically. Like, I've come back to the UK, and every time I go out, I'm like, shit, I'm not wearing my mask. Even though in the UK, wearing a mask is purely a choice, and most people in this country don't anymore. You know, it was only a requirement during like the thickest period during lockdown, and now it's pretty much practiced by nobody. And yet now that I've been in Japan for a little while, I am like actively like, oh, where's my mask? Wait a minute, I'm good. You know, it feels missing whenever I go outside. And another thing is that in the UK, we don't tend to bow very often. You know, you might do if someone bows to you, like, to show respect, but, like, it's not really normal. The most you'll do is sort of, you know, if you're walking past someone in the street, you might nod or something like that. But bowing, we don't do that in the UK. And so I've had to, like, physically restrain myself. I've had to physically restrain myself every time that I walk past a person, every time that I communicate with someone in a shop, every time that I see concierge when I walk back into my apartment. I have to stop myself from going, like 75 times, because I just got so used to that, right? And of course, the biggest thing that I got used to that I am so sad about, the legends about Japanese toilets were real. They were true. I've used a bidet, and I love it. And I love it so much. Listen, I have gone to great lengths to make sure that my nethers are nice and clean. On that plane, there was, of course, a Japanese toilet. And I went to guys, I was like, Mr. My boy, I'm going to take a shit. And I stood up and I walked down the aisle and I sat down, and suddenly I saw the controls and I was like, oh, so the legends are true. And I sat down, and I don't know what kind of maniac was using the bathroom before me. They had that shit dialed up to maximum water pressure. And I'm not going to say that I enjoyed it, but I definitely did. I sat there and I was like, all right, well, you know, sing with me, sing for the year. And I sat down, I pressed the button, and it was beautiful. Maximum water pressure, full heat setting. And I realized what I had been missing out on my entire life. My asshole had never felt so clean. And I have taken efforts to make sure that it is clean. But it had never been quite that clean before. I was so happy. After I got home... See, the thing about also the heated seats, right? The thing is, I have a condition. I am severely... What's the word? Afflicted, let's say. By a bad habit. And this bad habit is zoning out on the toilet for an extremely long time. Sometimes I'll be fighting for my life, and sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'll just, you know, take a piss. But I might sit down because I want to just relax for a moment. Maybe I'll take a shit, maybe I won't. And then I sit down, get my phone out, and I am there for 25, 30 minutes. And this is at home. This is on an ice-cold British toilet, right? This is on an ice-cold British toilet. There's nothing comfortable about it. I'd be so much more comfortable if I zoned out on my bed, for example, or in a chair. But no, I always choose to do it on the shitter. And yet it's cold and it's hard. And when I stand up, I have pins and needles. I feel like I have to pull a walking stick out and try to nurse myself off of the shitter. In Japan, with the warm seats and the comfort of being able to thoroughly cleanse my ass the instant I have the urge to, why would I ever stand up? Why would I ever stand up? I don't know why. It reinforced my bad habits, and so I think for that reason it is good that I am home, because otherwise I would simply have stayed in that A&A bathroom for the rest of my life.